Okay, welcome to the Socratic Club. What do you know about Socrates? Okay, good. Philosopher. From which country? Yeah, Greece. He's from Athens. He. This is called Socratic Club because not because we are going to talk about Socrates, although we will be using a lot of his method, the Socratic method. And Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living. Before Socrates, in the 6th, 5th centuries, the Greek philosophers used to study nature. They used to study nature. They used to find out what is the fundamental substance. So they said, some said, the fundamental substance of the universe is water. Some said it's fire, and so on. But Socrates, who came about 200 years later, he said that there's something better than studying nature, and that is studying human nature. Human nature is sometimes even more complex, than studying nature. And so if he believed, although he doesn't put it this way, he believed in a hierarchy of being. So you take stone. Stone has, or a piece of rock. It has being. It exists. Everything that exists has being. But stone doesn't have feelings. It's not a sentient being. Plants, have some kind of a feeling. So in a sense you could say that the plants are living. And today people say that plants react to music, and even when you talk to a plant, the plant would react. You can establish a kind of a relationship with the plant because the plant has some kind of sentience, meaning feelings. So rocks and stones, they have being. Plants have being, but they're also sentient. They have some kind of feelings. And then animals. Animals is higher than plants, and animals have what you call consciousness. It has certain, it mind work. It can learn certain things from past behavior, and so on. There are certain things it can learn. So animals have some kind of a consciousness. So rocks and stones have being, plants have being and sentience, animals have being, sentience, and consciousness. Okay, so these are higher levels. When you come to human beings, human beings have something that we feel that that animals generally don't have, and that is self-consciousness. Human beings are self-conscious. We know that we are human beings. I know many things about me. I know that I'm Sunil, and things like that. I don't think, a tiger knows that it is a tiger. I don't think. A tiger would never say, if it stands in front of a mirror, hi, I'm a tiger. It doesn't, it doesn't know itself. All the dolphins have certain kinds of self-consciousness on a very low level. Because dolphins, when the dolphins are in front of a mirror, there have been tests that is done. When the dolphins are in front of a mirror, its movements is totally different from any other movement of a dolphin any other time. So it displays unique movements. just when it is in front of a mirror looking at itself. It never displays that kind of moment any other time. Only when it's so people say it has some kind of self-consciousness, but I don't know if the dolphin still thinks, if it still says, "Oh, I'm a dolphin." I don't think, you know, the dolphin. You look at a dog, you look at a dog and say, "What a beautiful, what a handsome dog," but I don't think the dog knows that it's handsome. So that's what I mean by self-consciousness. So we have self-consciousness. It has a higher level, and so the question is, so in that sense human beings are more complex than let's say rocks or plants or animals. And so Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living. Kierkegaard, which I said in my class last time, Kierkegaard, one of my favorite philosophers. I think he's the greatest Christian philosopher of all time. Absolutely brilliant. He died when he was 42 years old. He lived in the 19th century. He was a Danish philosopher. And his mind used to be a kind of a feverish pitch. He was a God-intoxicated person. Every experience of his, he would be able to put it into writing. Just every experience, becomes a thought. And every thought of his, he used to write. He used to write in kind of a lectern. He used to write standing. Maybe I should try that, so that you don't feel, so that your mind is alert, So he stands, like when we are preaching in the pulpit, he stands and that's where he writes. If you go to Copenhagen, if you visit his house, you will find his house is now a museum, a museum about Kierkegaard, one of the most famous persons Denmark has ever produced. And so, so he used to just write and write and write, a God-intoxicated man. I don't know what goes on in his mind. And so he died when he was 42 years old, but he has left behind the books that he has written can fit a bookshelf 8 feet long, 10 feet high. And he died when he was 42. Some of his books are not yet translated. So Kierkegaard talks about a man, who did not know that he was alive. And one day he woke up to find, that he was dead. Yeah, that's the way Kierkegaard puts it paradoxically. The point that Kierkegaard is saying is he was so alienated, abstracted from his own life, that he did not know whether he was alive. And one day, he just died, without ever coming to the roots of his own existence. And there are many people who live their life without coming to the roots of their own existence. I mean, you can live your whole life, without really coming to the, you can spend your time earning money, becoming famous, becoming a celebrity, but you don't come to the roots of one's existence. What is life? Where are we from? What is the purpose of life? What is the summum bonum? What is the greatest good? What is the main purpose? Why we are here? So you don't, so it's possible for people to live their whole life without coming to the roots of one's existence. And Kierkegaard challenges us. Kierkegaard, by the way, one of his historical heroes is Socrates. He loved Socrates. And Socrates, Socrates is famous for what is called the Socratic method. The method is, the method is called dialectical method, where it's by asking questions. So Socrates was famous for asking questions. And actually Socrates did not directly come up with any answers. He usually comes up with questions. Although he came up with one particular question: what is justice? But generally, he asks questions, and because of that, he had to. The state, they killed him. Can you imagine? Just by asking questions, you can become a threat. I mean, not asking any questions, but asking deep, asking deep questions, questions that challenges one's life. For that, the state, which the Athenians used to take pride that it's a democratic state. Every citizen in Athens can directly vote. It was direct democracy, not democracy like today. Today we have representational democracy, where you vote the leaders and they represent us. But in the case of Athens, it was direct democracy. Every few months, or once every year, or so on, every Athenian citizen, only Athenian citizens, slaves and women cannot. So and then discrimination. So you had discrimination there. But if every Athenian citizen will come directly and will vote, they'll write on a stone piece, electing somebody. So they took pride on the democracy. But Socrates, he was a sculptor. According to tradition, he had a statue which says "to an unknown God." So the Act 17, maybe Socrates, sculpted by Socrates. I don't know. I'm just, but Socrates was a sculptor. He made a statue to an unknown God. Maybe that's that's what Act 17. I don't know. I don't know if that's the same. I don't know if that's the same. Statue. But he liked more than sculpting statues. He liked sculpting people's minds. So by asking questions, and finally they gave him a choice. The state, they said that he was corrupting the youth. Actually, he was choosing the youth. He was making the youth to think, asking questions. He was teaching them to ask deep questions. And so they said that he was corrupting the youth. And then they said he did not believe in the Greek gods. There is some sense in that which that is true, because he did not believe in the Greek gods like Zeus and others. He felt that Zeus and others were very immoral. I mean, the Greek gods were very immoral. But he did believe in one God. Socrates did believe in one God, so he was not an atheist. So they gave him two choices: either leave Athens or drink poison and commit suicide. He chose the latter. He said, I've not done anything wrong. If I leave, then it's like I've done something wrong. So I would rather. It's wonderful if you read his apology. If you read his. Hey. Very convenient, huh?
Krishnan gave this as
a peace offering. You can pick up some chairs. So anyway, you're on next week, eh?
Okay,
Yeah, we started. Yeah, because there is. He decided to take a video, so I thought, since you are not there, I thought it's a good time to introduce the Socratic Club and why it's named the Socratic. So it's like, so. Yeah, so they asked Socrates to drink hemlock, which is a poisonous plant, and he drank that. Aristotle, who is, Socrates' disciple was Plato. Plato's disciple was Aristotle. Years later, When Aristotle wanted to start his own school and Alexander the Great died. Alexander, as you know, is not Greek. Alexander is Macedonian. So the Greeks, would consider Macedonians as barbarians. And one of the things